Hi, this is Mrs. Ostrov, and I'm going to explain how we're going to start off our multiplication unit. So this is just part one. So the way we start off is by thinking about multiplying numbers by tens, hundreds, and thousands. So we're going to start off with a little exercise that I would do with students, and let's begin. Let's start by thinking about 3 times 10. Now 3 times 10, 30. How about 3 times 100? 3 times 100 is 300s, which would be 300. How about 30 times 10? And there are a few ways you could figure this out. One way would be to think about 10 times 10 is 100, so 3 of those, which would be 30, would be 300. So now that we have these number sentences up, let's start to look for some patterns. And you might be familiar with this already, but you could start to see that in this equation over here, we have 1 0 in our factors and 1 0 in the product. And this one over here, same thing. There are 2 zeros and then 2 zeros in our product. And here, within both factors, we have 2 zeros, and then we have 2 zeros in our product. So we're starting to think about 3 times 1 as 3, plus that 0 can give us 30. So there is a pattern here having to do with the basic fact, 3 times 1, and then those 2 zeros added on at the end. Let's take a look at another example. 4 times 20, 80. If we think about 20, 40, 60, 80. 4 times 200 also could be figured out with addition, repeated addition, 200, 400, 600, 800. But what if we get something like 400 times 20? Now we're starting to use that pattern that we saw before. Let's look at our basic fact of 4 times 2 equals 8, and then just tack on those zeros, which would be 8,000. So we want to start getting the pattern into some sort of rule, so we could kind of think about those zeros as separate from the basic fact. Now there are ways that you can figure it out without using that trick, but that's just a way to simplify it for us. So the way that students would apply this pattern, or a way to kind of challenge their thinking with this idea, would be to ask a question like, how many ways can you multiply to make 2,400 or 2,400? And what you'll often see is the first thing they'll think about is 24 times 100, because there are 24 hundreds within the number 2,400. That's basic place value that they've been learning about. But then when they start to take the rule of zeros, you could take one of these zeros and simply shift it over, and then you'll get something like 240 times 10. So you have the same basic fact of 24 times 1 in each of these, but the zeros are simply placed differently. Another way you could think about it is to think about the factors of 24. What are two numbers that will multiply to give me 24? And I have 6 times 4, but we need those 2 zeros to make 2,400. So I could take my basic fact 6 times 4 and then tack on those 2 zeros to give me 6 times 400, which would give me 2,400. And again, if we shift around those zeros, we can make it 60 times 40 or 4 times 600. And there are lots of other ways that you can make 2,400, like these, for example. It would be a great exercise for you to sit down and actually think about other ways that you can make 2,400, because it can get quite interesting. So the bigger reason why we want students to think about these patterns is to begin to estimate. And estimate is a really important skill that we stress a lot, because it's something that you'll use more often in life outside of school. So one way that they would use estimation, or that they would apply multiplying by tens to estimate, would be in this example, 395 times 2. Now, there are times where you are going to want to find the exact number, but for our purposes, let's just say we want to find about what 395 times 2 would be, right? I have 2 packages, each have 395 jelly beans. About how many jelly beans do I have? So we could start by rounding. Rounding is a tool used for estimation. So 395 would round to 400, and then we have a much simpler problem in 400 times 2. We could take that basic fact of 4 times 2 equals 8, and simply add on those zeros, and we would get 800. So this is a situation where I might want to know close to the exact answer. I know this is not the exact answer, but it's giving me a close enough answer. So another example of one you might want to estimate would be with 68 times 27. If I have 68 notebooks and each have 27 pages inside, about how many pages would I have? So we could do a similar thing as last time with a rounding, and we could go 68 rounds to 70, 27 rounds to 30. So now I have a much simpler problem, and I could use the trick that we learned before, 7 times 3 equals 21, and then tack on those 2 zeros, which would be 2,100. So this is just a little bit of a brief introduction to how we would be learning about multiplication in terms of patterns. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.